Hi, my name is Lim Lee, and today I'll be demonstrating on how to correctly serve in the sport of tennis. Recent study shows that having the incorrect form of service causes injuries to many beginning players. According to Dr. Glaber, it is important and crucial to go over the technique, learning how to balance your body weight, how to not to arch your back, hyperextending it, or extending your knees in a fast pace that can cause injuries to the body parts. He also states that it is important to go over with an instructor step by step before moving on to the next level. However, many young players still tend to ignore the fact because they watch professionals play and they see them hit the ball hard, which causes their body to stiffen up, which causes them injuries. This is why Kim Salzman from Tennis Fixation, she states that many players grow those bad habits along the way while they're playing the sport because they didn't go over the techniques or forms when they first started the sport. In the sport of tennis, it is important to have the correct form of service, to have the maximum power, speed, and accuracy, and most importantly, to avoid injuries. Before I move on to the demonstration, I'll be going over the history of tennis and some of its background stories and its rules so you guys can get the big picture and its idea. According to Britannica, the sport started in the late 1960s, which is when it gained the most population. Also, the sport was first known as the lawn sport because it was only played on grass court by the Victorian family from Great Britain. Gaining its population in the late 1970s when television started broadcasting the major tournaments such as the French Open, the US Open, the Australian Open, and the most famous one, the Wimbledon. When the sport started, the players were only allowed to wear white uniforms. However, as time moved on, players were allowed to wear different colors of uniform, which developed the fashion side of the sport. Alongside with the fashion, the equipment also developed in the sport. As you can see, this racket was not invented to be this at the first. It was first made out of wood, and it also had a standard size that players could not go over it or lower it. But nowadays, there are different sizes of the tennis racket, which matches the player's playing style, which gains them the maximum power they need while they're playing the sport. Also, this ball, it first used to be a white ball, but it changed to yellow just because it was easier for the players to track the ball and hit it. And lastly, also the shoes. This is a standard hard court shoe that players use while they're playing in this kind of hard court. But now, since there are like 3 different courts, such as the clay court, the grass court, and hard court, the shoes are designed for each specific court as well. Because in clay court, it is a very slippery material. The shoes have better traction, and also in the grass, it has better stability for players to hit the ball back. Now that we went over the history, we're going to go over the rules of the sport. So the match begins with the coin toss, deciding who serves first. When the players decide to serve first, that's when the match begins. The players begin to rally, hitting the ball over the net, back and forth. And one player can win the point in 2 ways, unless the other player hits an error, hitting it outside of the allowed lines, or not being able to hit the ball over the net. And the second option is when the player hits a winner, which means that he hits a ball in a way that the other player cannot reach it and return the ball. Now that we have went over the history and the rules of tennis, we're going to go over the demonstration on how to serve. According to Men's Health Fitness, there are 6 major steps on the serve. The first starts with the stance. So if you can follow me to over here. So the stance starts in a parallel position where the front foot is angled toward the right post of this tennis court, and that the back foot will be parallel to the heel of the foot. This is a basic stance, but there are 2 types of stance. This is a standard one, and there is also a pinpoint, which basically means when you toss the ball, you bring the back foot to the front, which would gain more explosion towards the serve. But today we're just going to go over the standard stance, which is basically this one. And then the second step is the grip. So the way you want to grip the tennis racket is basically giving it a simple handshake. So just like this. So this is the standard grip in order to serve. The third step is a toss. The toss is important because you want the ball to go as directly as possible so your shoulders doesn't move left or right, which can cause a lot of injuries to your muscles and tendons in the rotator cuff. So while you serve, you want to release the ball in your eye level and keep following it with your releasing arm as straight as you can, which will look like this. So this will be the most effective toss, which will get you the maximum result. And then the fourth step will be the backswing. So what the backswing is, when you toss the ball, the hitting arm will go back and move forward. So this motion is the backswing. And the reason why this step is important, it's important to let your arm loose, because if your arm is stiff, you're putting way too much stress on your rotator cuff and your shoulders and also your back. So you want the backswing to be smooth as possible and hit it hard when it gets the ball. So the backswing will look like this. So you want the racket to make the wind sound. But if your body is stiff, it will not make as much as wind sound. The fifth step is hitting the ball. So your racket will stay in the motion where the edge of the racket will still be facing the court of the other side, but when you hit it, you're gonna turn the racket in a flat way so you can hit the ball. So you go, the racket is still facing the court, and once you reach the ball, you turn and hit the ball. And the last and most important step is the follow through. So the follow through is basically following through after you hit the ball. So you hit the ball and you want to follow through, which will make the racket fall on the opposite side of your leg. And why this is important, because if you just hit it and stop here, you're putting a lot of pressure on your muscle and also your trunk. So you want it to be one smooth motion. So you hit and follow through. And now I'll be demonstrating on how to serve. Now that you have seen the demonstration on how to correctly serve, we're gonna go over some of the incorrect ways so you guys can know what not to do when you guys play the sport. So, according to the ITF, which is the International Tennis Federation, there are 3 major injuries it causes to many beginning players. The first one is the rotator cuff tears. So, in the rotator cuff, we have 4 muscles and tendons that are very sensitive. And when you stiffen your arm, just like this, or move your arm left or right when you serve, it causes a lot of structure and stress into the muscles that we have in the rotator cuff, which will cause the tears. So as I said before, when you serve, you want to let your arm very loose and not to stiffen it up, which will cause a lot of stress and pressure. The second major injuries that the ITF states is the jumper knees. So what the jumper's knees is, as you saw before, when you serve, you have to bend your knees and extend it so you can push off the ground and reach a higher level of the ball when you hit it. So the jumper knees occurs when you bend it and extend it in such a fast pace, which will cause these muscles to hyperextend and injure themselves. And the last one is a stress fracture in the back. So this injury happens when you serve and you arch your back way too much, which puts a lot of pressure in here, and also when you rotate the trunk of your hip. So it happens when you arch your back and when you rotate it in the wrong way. So that is why you want to stay within your limits, not to arch your back way too back or way too forward, and just find your balance of your body weight. So now that we went over the injuries, you guys now know what not to do when you guys play the sport next. Today we went over the history of tennis, the rules, the demonstrating on what are the steps to correctly serve and what not to do when you guys play the sport. I want everyone to remember that it is important to have the correct form of service before moving on to the next level to gain the maximum result with power, speed, and accuracy, and most importantly, to avoid injuries. Thank you.